Here we are, another incredible conversation of absolute fire, gold, and flow. I am just so excited, deeply honored, and giddy with joy to welcome the amazing Deidre to our show here and to just an unfolding of what is needed today. I just feel so blessed to get to continually have these conversations with incredible humans who are doing the real work in the world. And as we always do, today we're going to let the conversation lead us wherever it goes. We're going to trust and know that you receive exactly what you came for. And we're going to hear from a woman who really just takes center stage of her life. And why I knew I had to have Deidre on the show, not just because I had the pleasure of getting to know her somewhat intimately as a mentor and just getting to see how she really shows up, but also because this is a woman who not only really says yes to what's a true yes for her in business, but she does so beyond what I would call the obvious scope of entrepreneurship. And, I don't know if there's an obvious scope of entrepreneurship, but at least in female entrepreneurship, it's almost like a bit of a kind of like a container that a lot of people fit into and that a lot of people seem to think that they need to fit into. And one of the things, sort of the many things that I just adore about this woman is that she says yes to whatever is a yes for her, regardless whether or not it on the surface of it seems to make sense within that typical container of entrepreneurship. And so as a result of that, we've got incredible waves of impact, we've got messaging, we've got leadership, but we've got entertainment, performance, and just showing up from soul in all the different ways. So welcome, Deirdre.
I'm so happy to be here. And it's so wild because as you're speaking about the saying yes to the things that don't even necessarily like make sense in the moment, but it's a soul yes. It's like I'm going through a whole shift right now in my life where the things that I thought were totally my true identity and me up until, a few months ago are like, that's actually not it anymore. And so it's just like this constant up leveling and understanding and letting go and allowing what's meant for me to show up without me trying to be in the driver's seat all the time. We talk about that in coaching, like get into the driver's seat. Well, it's like sometimes it's like, no, the universe is pulling me in this direction and I need to let go of control. So it's really great to be here and talk about all
Uh,
this stuff.
that excites my heart so much. And I just feel like, oh, there are like 10 things I want to ask from that little just tidbit right there. So what I'd love is for you to just share, well, let's say that somebody wanted to just understand who you are, not from a, buyer perspective, obviously they can read that, but more from a, who are you, who and what are you? And then we'll lead into speaking about this shift because this is so important, right? And we're going to pick that thread back up around stepping aside and allowing yourself to essentially be taken over by what is taking you. But yeah, I'd love to just hear you share from the heart about who you are, what leads you, what guides you, whatever comes to mind.
Beautiful. 7 years ago, I was putting my fingers through my hair in my kitchen. And at that moment in time, from the outside looking in, and I had even convinced myself that everything was great. So I was like, everything's on track, checking things off the list. And I'm putting my fingers through my hair. And I realized that something feels off. So I grabbed my phone, I raced to the bathroom, I put on camera mode, and I start angling at the back of my head trying to figure what's going on here, and I realized that I had a bald spot that was this big, so a couple inches wide.
Wow.
And I was like, how did this happen? How do I fix it? Clearly the universe is trying to tell me something. And then I sat down to ground for a moment, and that's when I heard this voice come out of me and say, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year.
Full
So
goosebumps.
I was just, like, what do you do, right? I
It's
was just
very
blown away.
specific. That's not just like, hey, it's time to follow your true path.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was sitting there and I had a flashback to at the time, the only other time I had ever heard this voice speak to me. And I was walking down the aisle. I was excited to marry the man that I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. And the same voice said, this just isn't going to work.
Wow.
But I had never understood what my intuition was. I didn't know what it was, and I thought I was on the right path, so I shoved it down, I ignored it. And then I'm sitting at my kitchen table 7 years ago, and I'm like, wow, I have 4 different types of autoimmune disease that the doctors can't help me with. I have chronic pain in my neck and shoulders. I have food sensitivities. I'm unhappily married, like can't stand being in the room with this man. And I was like, wow, like my soul has been giving me these messages for years and I haven't been listening. So
You
I
went
made a
ahead and got
commitment.
married anyways, even though you heard that voice.
Yes, it was like moments before saying I do. Like
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
was inconvenient to say the least, but also I didn't know what it meant. Like I didn't
Right.
really like I built
You
that
didn't know
trust,
to
right?
listen and trust.
Yeah, and so I was sitting there and I realized like I have to change. I have to show up for the work because I was listening in a lot of areas of my life, but not all of them. And that's what brought me down this path of listening to the language of the soul. That's one of the foundations of what I teach and what I share. And it comes down to how our body is always giving us these little messages.
Hmm.
And from that experience, Kat, like I healed myself of chronic pain, 3 out of the 4 autoimmune diseases, depression, everything within just a few months from listening. And then today, what I help people do is listen to the soul through the physical body and then make an impact in the world. So that's as far as like a personal story goes of like, hey, you're going to die, you're going to get cancer, to wake up and start showing up and really listening.
Yeah. Wow. There is so much good there. And you've created an incredibly successful business from soul, of course. And, to me, these things go hand in hand. Anyone who's a guest
Mhm.
on my show or anyone who's a client or a friend, we get that. But for everyone listening, if you don't get that, I mean, we can't sit here and say incredibly successful anything if it's not from soul and from truth. But you really, stand out as being somebody who, well, as you just said, you teach the language of soul. You teach people how to listen, how to connect. And as a result of you following those threads that you've mentioned in your own life, you have an incredibly successful coaching business. You impact so many humans around the world to be in service to their truth. But you've gone on to create things that, as we were saying earlier, many entrepreneurs don't create. And one of the things that really was just, so profound to me in the time that I got to coach you and support you and mentor you was, wow, she just doesn't place things that are even, like so crazy, vast, amazing, like what most people would consider out of the scope of the online world, let's say. She just doesn't place them in the impossible basket, or, maybe she does, but she says yes anyway. And to a point of really making big moves in worlds to do with entertainment, performance, and just showing up creatively, where many people I know get that sort of call and yearning, but they put it like on a pedestal or on the one day shelf. Like, well, sure, I conceptually believe that I can say yes to soul and do all these different things, but obviously first I need to, be here or here or here. So I'd love you to just speak to that. And was that something that there was a pivotal moment around, really just giving yourself that permission point to like make big leaps, even, if things were so supposedly next level, or is it all just that continuation of you starting to listen to inner guidance?
Well, okay, so right now on my chalkboard, I have "This is it" written on it, which is something that's going to be coming in the future. And essentially, what "this is it" means is that this is it. As
Mm-hmm.
in, this moment is my life right here, whether I like it or I don't like it. And what I love about that statement of this is it, is I can either choose where I'm at, which may not be serving me, where I want something more, or I can choose the thing that I want and really step into it. But either way, I am choosing it because this is my life right now. Too many people wait for tomorrow for permission, and let me tell you, every time someone tells me I can't do something, I actually see that as a big flag saying I must do it. That's actually
Mm-hmm.
been one of my guidance systems of like, oh, that's actually something I'm supposed to do. So that's how I look at if I have a goal or a vision or something that comes to me, and if a family member or someone in my sphere is saying, oh, you can't do that, that's too hard, I lean into it, and that's where everything happens for me. But it's not always easy, and I'm in a transition right now. Like, I think about where we were a year ago when we were working together, Kat, and there were some projects that I was like, oh, Kat, like, are they ready? And you're like, they're ready, it's time to go. And you were like, it's ready, now's the time. You're like, just do the thing. And now it's like, it's really the time to step into them in a bigger way. So it's a bit of showing out for it, giving yourself permission to have the space and time that you need for integration. And then just going all in. Like, you can't learn unless you jump all in. And so
Mhm.
I'm the rip the band-aid off kind of person. And that's why I really resonated with your work, Kat, was because I'm like, I want to work with someone who is like me, who can coach me with my own stuff, with not being me.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about you, is because it's just do the thing, just do it. And through doing it is where the next step shows up. So, yeah.
So, what's something that has really scared you, you know, and that maybe you wrestled with, that ultimately you did finally give into? You know, I like to say in the end, you just like, not everybody, but in the end, people like us, you're gonna give in to being who you really are. You're gonna give in to the things. So, like, fast track, just do it now. But obviously, the human experience is not always quite that black and white. We wrestle with things. We take our time. We're like, can I really? So, I'd love to
Right.
know what's something that you did wrestle with, or that you know, maybe toyed with, like, can I actually, or can I actually now? And just sharing a specific story or example that comes to mind of how you then ultimately moved past that and brought that thing into fruition.
Mm. So writing my book, I
Mm.
grew up when I was younger, I really struggled with writing and reading to the point where I would have to get more support, and I had a lot of anxiety. So even in university, all of my English classes, all of my essays, all of that stuff would be marked up in red, and it was my hardest class, but I had this feeling that I was supposed to write a book. So I had the feeling for a year. And then one day I saw an opportunity to make it happen in a short amount of time. I put my butt in the seat to make it happen. And I wrote it. And a lot of my stuff came to the surface of like, oh, is this going to be any good? Can I do this? And I remember submitting the first part of my book to the editor and like not wanting to press send and pressing send, closing my laptop and just being like, I don't know how this is going to come back. And just like her responding and saying, this is a home run. You're a natural writer. And I had never heard that before. And I started crying. I was like, wow. And that's another, piece of when I'm told I can't do something or I've really struggled with it. It's like, no, this is actually showing up, putting your
Mm-hmm.
butt in the seat, even if it doesn't make any sense, the rewards on the other side of that. And so my book was a piece of that. Stepping into coaching was a part of that. Like, who am I to do this? I was in my 20s, but everyone was saying, this is what you're already doing for us. And then one day I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm a coach. One day I was like, I'm a coach. And that was it. I just owned it.
Right, but you stated it, and then you did something that a lot of people miss this step, I guess, which is that you can state and claim anything, obviously, that you see and that you're shown, and you know it's real, it's available for you, it's yours. But then there's the
Mm,
requirement to live into it. And so I think a lot of the time people look at a woman such as yourself, me, you know, most people who I would speak to, I know that this is common, and they have an assumption that essentially you rolled out of the womb with that level of confidence, certainty, badassery, and so on and so forth. And or that even when you do something like you write the book, you hit send, and you know you build the business and you create the things, that you first dealt with, cleared, addressed, or was somehow like divinely removed of fear, doubt, and uncertainty. Whereas what you're obviously saying, and I'd love you to speak more to this a little, is it's, you know, it's there and you're taking action anyway, you're choosing to be her anyway. It's not that you know, graduated from being human and then you are able to bring these things to life. So do you have a personal, yeah, practice or process or anything you just even say to yourself that enables you to put those fears, doubts, uncertainties aside and show up from a place of being her, but also I think this kind of references what you said at the start, like showing up from a place of it's not about me being in the driver's seat.
yeah. So I think of So about 6 or 7 years ago, I wanted to be a speaker. I was like, I want to be a motivational speaker and speak all around the world. And then literally that week, Kat, I got a phone call from a friend of mine. And I didn't even tell this friend about what I wanted to do. and he's like, hey Dee, we need a keynote speaker for this event. And he does like these big events. And I was shaking on one side of the phone. Every cell in my body was saying no, because I was like, I'm not ready. What am I going to talk about? The events this weekend? Like, I'm going to look stupid. And I hadn't even started my coaching business at the time. And I just said yes.
Mm-hmm.
And because I said yes, it opened up all these other opportunities. But going back to the process is, if I am putting something out there vibrationally and I'm saying, I want this, the teacher is going to appear, the coach is going to appear, the opportunity is going to appear. And like, when we don't say yes to it, the universe will show up a few times for the round of what we say that we want. But if we're not saying yes to it, it's going to take a lot longer for it to show up again. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's like ripping off the band-aid, doing the thing, having honesty, courage, and showing up. And that's what I teach my clients. And what I have to be, it's like, okay, honesty, well, I want this. Courage, it's going to be hard, but I have to say yes and do the thing, rather than saying, oh, you know what, next year, or when I do this first, because you and I both know when we do that, it's not going to happen, right? We're just pushing our desires away.
Totally. Totally. I love this so much. And it's about that willingness to just step forward on the path without knowing what, every step or even the next step on the path is. But something that you just said there is so powerful, which is essentially around, there's a common understanding out there that like success begets success. So you just watch it, right? People who create true soul led success, monetary success, business success, I mean, I've been in this industry for so long. You've been in this industry for years as well. There's so many of us who, in a sense, like I grew up with these people online over the past like 10, 15, 17 years for me. And I watch
Wow.
all these people around the world where it's like, okay, well, 10 years ago, we were all kind of like whatever. And then we all started making more money. And then, oh, I just watched you get like in phenomenal shape now when you didn't even have a fitness habit before. And now you've got this incredible relationship. And now look at how you're parenting. And now, like community and spirituality and giving back. And it's just this ascension model, in a human sense, essentially, of people who really are following soul. They bit by bit sort out every area of their life, say yes to everything that they're shown. And it seems to become, more and more easy for people who are playing that sort of game. And really, like, there's biblical truth here, right? Like, the rich become richer essentially. And, the rich, like, just so much good stuff there. But I think what people oftentimes don't understand, and what you're really bringing through here, which is so powerful, is that this is about the fact that you chose to be a person who says yes on repeat, and who says yes, predominantly with a level of immediacy. And so it's actually training yourself into being a person who is shown more, has more revealed, cosmically, energetically, who is supported more by God, by soul, by life itself. And so you almost get like kind of carried along in this wave. And as you said yourself, when we hesitate or we hold back or we kind of like talk ourselves into, can we really, everything sort of slows down the other way. So I don't really have a particular question there, but I'd just love to know if there's anything additional coming up for you that you want to say around that, and around just choosing to be the person where it all actually gets to show up.
Yes. It feels like, when I think about being the person where everything shows up, it's about being yourself, your true self. And,
Mm-hmm.
I know you've shared stories in the past where, you were kind of, I don't know if you said you were the geeky kid in school, or,
Yeah.
all of that. But
Yeah.
I
Nerdy one.
was the girl that was like made fun of for, having a lot of energy, or, being friends with everyone. And there were certain things in my life that I was, kind of outcasted for. And usually as we grow up, we're like, oh, I don't want to be those parts of myself. I want to fit in. I want to fit into a certain level so that I'm not attacked, so that people don't think this or that of me. But those are actually your superpowers. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can look at the parts of yourself where you're like, oh, that's too much, or that's this or that, and you can embrace that and give yourself permission just to be yourself and be in the right environments, like, everything happens so quickly. And then you meet all of your people who are like, yes, thank you for showing up, thank you for bringing your gifts, thank you for sharing your message. So to me, it's environment is huge. Being in the right environment, being around the right people, and then also just like for me, I got a lot of quirks about me, and I'm messy, I'm all over the place, and I'm intense. And, it's just really embracing all that you are, and stop trying to fix yourself. Stop trying to change yourself. Stop trying to fit in. And in the not fitting in, that's where you figure out where you belong, and that's within yourself, right?
Oh, that is such a powerful statement. That's definitely going to be a quote. In the not fitting in, that's where you find yourself. So, you spoke at the start about that you've had some big shifts that are coming through for you. Is there anything you want to share there, either specific to what you're seeing, but also, I guess, around what that brings up for you and how you anchor in? I mean, you've shared quite a lot about what it really is like for you in terms of the saying yes side, but given that you're in a
Mhm.
shifting, transitioning period right now, I'm sure there's extra things coming up.
Oh wow. It's been so about a year ago I had a vision of singing and performing and writing a bunch of books, and I've been a coach and I've created a brand and it's great and I help people, and I'm really in a space. I was in a launch actually, for a part of my business, and I was like going hard and I was like, this is what we're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
it actually wasn't from a place of truth, alignment, and excitement. It was, I should do this.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my energy behind it. And for me, I'm an energetic, so there's different ways of creating, and I'm an energy movement expansion, which means I have to have my energy behind something, and then I can take action, and then things
Mm,
will manifest great. But if I'm doing something because I think I should do it and my energy is not there, it's because it's not aligned, it's not working. And so I realized that, like, and this is like partway through the launch, I've never done this before. I was like, this actually isn't what I want to be doing right now. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to be doing right now? And I started to really tune in. I'm like, I want to be creating more music, and there's some new programs and stuff coming through that are more exciting and alive in me. And I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take the next 4 to 8 weeks, which is a good chunk of time, to just, continue to serve my clients, but not any pressure to do, be, or create anything, and
mm-hmm.
see what shows up. As a result of like just allowing to see what shows up, all of these opportunities are showing up that are directly connected to what I want to do. And in that
Mm,
moment as well, I'm releasing the parts of me that I've loved, that have been super successful and great, but aren't actually coming along for the journey because they're no longer serving me.
yeah.
And a part of that is trusting God and surrendering to God, because I know I'm a messenger of God, and I know I'm here to be a spiritual leader and fully devote my life to that. And I'm like, wow, like this is where I need to be, and that can still be happening, but this needs to be priority. So it's been huge, and it's been uncomfortable, and I've been spending a lot of time in nature and just giving myself permission to not have everything figured out, and
What's
everyone is showing up.
what's been uncomfortable? What's been uncomfortable, and I guess like further to that, did you have to really kind of like convince yourself into that you would take that time? What came up for you? Because I think everybody would love to have, a few months to just like tune in, but pretty much everybody's going to go, but like I can't, it's not practical, or, money, or like a whole laundry list of reasons.
Hmm. Yeah, so the reason I've decided to take time off or to step aside and make myself a priority, like fully, is because I've been so good my whole life at getting things done, of making
Mm,
things happen. And in the making things happen and the getting things done, am I connected to soul? Yes. And soul will shift and redirect us where we need to go. And I was just feeling like if something's not working, then it's a no. It's a no for me. It's not about pushing harder. I think a lot of the time in relationships, careers, it's like push harder, go faster, all these things. And sure, yeah, sometimes. And sometimes it's like, no, this actually isn't where you're meant to be. So
yeah.
for me, it was noticing if I'm trying to figure it out up here or force it, then it's not it. And I need to step back and surrender and allow the answers to come.
Mm. I love that. And it's that understanding as well. And just, the more time goes, the more that we just know that this is truth. It's the understanding that
Yeah.
it's not what is it going to potentially cost me right now or what am I scared of right now. It's what is it costing me to not say yes to this truth that I'm being shown. Like it's just the
Mhm.
knowingness that on the other side of that surrender to soul is, beyond your wildest dreams, basically. And I think that we kind of get to a point of really having that coded in with experience, but also for those listening, like you can listen, you can hear, you can decide, I'm not going to wait years down the track to finally get to that point where it's just natural that I surrender faster because I know that that's how it works. Like that's the whole point. You get to collapse time from listening to people who are walking such a powerful path. So you
Mhm.
spoke about it. I want to come back to this statement again around realizing that you don't need to be in the driver's seat. What does that mean to you? And then what does it actually look like in a literal day-to-day sense? What is the practicality of you allowing yourself to be guided by something, that transcends you being in the driver's seat?
Mm. So last year, over 12 months ago in the winter, or the end of the summer, I knew that I wanted to get out of Canada for a few months or potentially a year. I was like, I don't want to be here. And so in that moment, originally I was like, oh, maybe I'll go to Costa Rica or maybe I'll go to Bali because I love Bali and I love Costa Rica and I spent a lot of time there. And so I was back and forth. Where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? And then I realized I'm trying to figure this out. And if I'm doing a pros and cons list, I know I'm not in soul. I know I'm not in flow. I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm trying to make something happen. And so I stepped back after noticing that and I said, okay, fine, universe, God, source, when I need to know by this specific date where I'm going, but until then, I'm not going to think about it, which is kind of what's going on with my life in a way. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to take like a couple months. I'm still going to show up for the work, but I'm not going to try to figure anything out.
Mm.
And so I did that. And then at the end of my mastermind retreat, one of my friends came over to the house that I rented and she's like, Dee, I'm going to Mexico. And I was like, wow, today is the last day that I asked the universe for that message of where I was going to be going. And I received so many messages, Kat, that I needed to be in Mexico, but I wasn't seeing them because
Wow.
I didn't want to see them. Right? And so I wasn't paying attention. And as a result of saying yes to Mexico, I met my favorite author. He wrote the foreword of my book, and all of these other opportunities opened up. So
Um,
as soon as I stepped back and I was like, okay, I don't know the answer. I'm gonna let it figure itself out. I have this date. The universe was like, okay, your friend's going to show up on this day and it's going to give you a very strong message. You're going to meet your favorite author and all of those things. So on a practical level, it's like if you're trying to figure something out and you don't know the answer, ask God
right.
for the answer. And I'll step back, but I would love it to be very clear and obvious when it
Right.
comes,
Right. And I love that you
right?
stated that, just asking for the clarity and asking for it to be obvious. We don't need to be walking around, waiting for like a passing cloud sensation to somehow guide us. So the more you ask, the more you're going to receive in all ways. I'd love to
Mm.
know, what are you most proud of about what you've created into the world, but also about who you are as a woman?
Hmm. What I'm most proud of. Oh, this is such a great question. I think I'm most proud of it's not specifically what I've put out into the world, but I would say I'm most proud of all of the moments when I chose myself and I fully backed myself when no one else did. When, like, despite all odds, everything around me was telling me, not to do something, but I trusted my intuition and went all in. There's a few of those moments that I can think of, like, leaving my career that I had before, stepping into coaching my other business and just walking away from it. Huge clients that I had being like, yeah, nope, this doesn't feel good anymore. Leaving a marriage, starting this
Mm,
business, now getting
mm-hmm.
into music, writing a book. Like it's all of the small things, but they're really big things because they're pivotal. And then as a woman, what I'm most proud of as a woman is I think I'm stepping more into this now, um, because I feel like it's a constant stepping into more and more, but it's using my voice so that other women can find their voice.
Wow. I love
Yeah.
that. That's so powerful. I can't believe how much just heartfelt gold has been impregnated into such a relatively short conversation. I just feel your soul shining through so beautifully. I know everybody listening or watching is feeling that. And you are just anointed as an opener for women. I can just feel that.
Mm.
I'm just getting that for you. It's just, it's not just the things you say and the things that you put out into the world and what you do. It's who you are and how you embody being you. And your very breath is a gateway. And I know that so many women around the world and people around the world listening just get to receive from that, whether or not they come into your space. I have one final question though for you, which is if you can feel into you have a cosmic megaphone, basically, and you have a minute or so to just share something with the world that is coming through you right now in this moment. It's not a soundbite, obviously, um, and it's just what people need to hear right now. What is it that really is on your heart that you want people to know or hear or just receive right now?
Mm. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps. It's you already have all of the answers inside of you. Everything that is outside of you, the mentor that you're hiring, the book, all of those things are great, but at the end of the day, you're always going to know the answers, and sometimes we can entertain ourselves to distract ourselves from the answers. And I was in conversation with someone earlier today around relationship, and I'm like, you already know. Like, don't ask me. You already know. And I think if we just trust our knowingness and we can back ourselves and take those actions, everything's going to change. So trust what you know. And if it doesn't feel good, it's a no. And if it does, it's a yes. It's super simple.
So simple.
Yeah,
So
so
simple,
simple.
so perfect. So, yes, thank you so
Mm.
much for your beautiful time, space, energy, and just bringing your light here to the show. I'm so grateful for you and grateful for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. This is so awesome, Kat.
Yay.